This episode of The Big 60 brought to you by Louis Carr Real Estate, helping people in the Hills District find their dream home since 1992. Ready to buy, sell or rent? Check out louiscarr.com.au for all your property needs.
If you're old enough to remember when phones had cords and the only thing that went viral was a cold, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Big 60 with Kaylee Harris and Guy Rawlinson. Because who better to discuss life's second act than two people who still think mature is a type of cheese?
Welcome back to another episode of the Big 60. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Or if you're making questionable life choices and a regular listener, thanks for coming back. Speaking of questionable choices, today we're diving into the most outrageous, ridiculous and slightly regrettable fashion trends of the 60s, 70s and 80s. And of course, I couldn't do it without my co-host and someone whose perm probably defied gravity.
Oh, I did.
Probably had its own postcode back in the day. The always stylish, always wonderful, and who is never questionable choice, Kaylee Harris.
I love your intros. They're the best.
How are you?
They're not accurate, but they're the best.
What, the postcode about the perm or what?
Oh, no, I'm always fashionable.
Hey, listen, and you probably had a perm back in the day, and we'll get onto that a bit later, but, I mean, how many cans of hairspray were probably sacrificed in the name of hair, whether it was in the 70s or 80s?
Oh, the hair and I guess, are we going to start on the big hair of the 80s? Is that where you want to start?
We
could. I know. I remember even going back to the 70s, the bangs. I don't think boys had bangs, did they? But it was just a girl thing where you'd get a curling wand. Everyone had a curling wand, and you would curl these front bits of your hair back so that they would sort of flick back, and they were called bangs.
Right. Where did that name come from?
I have no idea where that came from. But up until I was about 17, I was still going to my mother's hairdresser and letting my mother tell her how to cut my hair. And it just didn't seem strange to me. I just go, and Mum would go, oh, can you cut it really short and all this. And I had terrible hair through high school. And it wasn't until I kind of left school and went, oh, you know what? I can actually grow this out and do something with it.
Look, in your favour, at least it didn't involve a bowl.
Yeah, well, that's true. Did you have a bowl?
So you're one up on way too many.
I've seen your hair when we were in primary school, and you had this straight blonde hair that it dare I say it, was a bowl cut?
No.
Okay.
It was probably a very cheap barber, though.
There you go. You had such luscious locks. You had these really thick, beautiful, straight blonde hair as a boy.
Oh, now that's just teasing.
No,
I don't think it changed much through high school. I think it was blonde and sort of almost down to my shoulders and parted in the middle and sort of, when that was all very much the rage and,
Very Leif Garrett.
Oh, do we want to go there?
Not this episode.
No. Hey, let's go back. Let's go back to the 60s. We were talking about the 60s earlier. Off air. What are your memories of some of the fashions from the 60s? And
I can remember my mum's fashions, and she, and I think that she had. I can remember boots, but I think that came in the 70s. But back in the 60s, I was very young, and Mum used to make all of our clothes, my sister and I, and she would make the same thing for both of us, but in different colours. And I remember we had matching safari suits. Oh. And because Dad had a safari suit, and we loved Dad, we wanted to look like Dad. So my sister had a bright pink safari suit, and I had a bright purple one. And yes, there is physical evidence of this, which I'll produce. But that's my memory of. I don't remember a lot about the shoes or the fashions in the 60s. It wasn't until the 70s that I sort of started to become a bit more aware of what we were wearing.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't remember a lot about it, but it's probably whatever your parents put on you, and you think,
exactly.
you're too busy outside playing or doing whatever we were doing. But I remember that Mum was a super keen knitter. And so come wintertime, it was always hand-knitted jumpers and hand-knitted cardigans and all those sort of things. And, of course, these days it costs more to buy the wool and the time that it takes, even though there was a lot of love that went into it. It's so much cheaper and quicker just to buy your jumper off the rack these days, So, I don't remember a lot. I've probably got some, photographs of some crimes that were committed as far as children's wear in the 60s that I had. And particularly if we were going into town, I remember we had to get dressed up if we were going into Sydney town. I'd go in with my mother and my grandmother, and we'd go to David Jones, and they'd have the cafeteria at David Jones.
Oh, yeah, that was very posh.
And I remember my grandmother would wear gloves and a hat to go into the city.
Wow.
And I've got a photograph of myself with a little suit jacket and a little bow tie.
No.
And
That's so cute.
To go in on the train and the bus into the David Jones cafeteria to have lunch.
It was a big deal. I remember it was a really big deal.
It really was.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I don't really recall. I think I was probably too busy, rolling around in mud and doing all those things that kids do when they're, at that age.
Yeah.
But the 70s, different kettle of fish.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about knitting. Let's start off with crocheted bikinis.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean? What does ooh mean? Does that mean you were a fan or you weren't a fan?
Oh, you kidding me?
You okay?
Not that I owned one. Not that I owned one.
All right.
But I mean, I had the tracker board shorts, which was super cool. But yeah, any girl who was worth their salt had the crocheted bikini, right?
Oh, I didn't. No.
Oh.
No, I wasn't allowed to wear one. They were a bit too rude.
I know. What was going on? Was it wool? What were they knitted out of wool? Crocheted
they
out
were
of wool?
crocheted, out of, so not knitted with the tight stitching, they were crocheted, so they had like little tiny holes in them, which is not a good thing.
No.
But I remember in the 70s because growing up we had a little one-piece swimsuit. And then when it got to the 70s and it got to the sort of mid 70s, it was bikini time. And I felt so naughty wearing a bikini. It was like, oh, I'm a big girl now because I've got a bikini on. And it was just, oh my gosh, it was next level.
I remember seeing my first crocheted bikini. It was at Batteau Bay. I think we were having a holiday there, and I think my jaw dropped. I must have been 15, and I thought, oh my gosh. So I think that's when there was a realisation going on. But did you ever have one of those crocheted vests? It was like little things and like a crocheted vest.
No, I didn't have a crocheted vest, but I had a knitted crocheted poncho in the 70s, and it was ponchos. Because remember, through the 70s and even into the 80s, the colours were very loud. And my poncho, Mum made the poncho, and it was blue and red and this really big zigzag pattern. And I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought, I've got a poncho. I'm super cool now.
Ponchos, I'd forgotten all about ponchos. I think I had one.
Yeah.
I think doubles at a picnic rug.
Everyone did.
It doubles as a picnic rug, really, doesn't it?
That's right. They were so trendy.
I know. The thing that knitting, crocheting that I loved, and this is the late 70s, and I thought I was the coolest kid. Not that I was the only kid, but there was a TV show, Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, Starsky's big jumper thing. Oh, that was the coolest.
Yes.
Everyone had to have one of those.
I had one.
Did you have one?
Absolutely. And wore it out like it didn't matter where it was, particularly if it was a school thing, whether it was a disco or a film night or something, you just wore your Starsky jacket.
Your Starsky jacket. I remember that so. I was a huge Starsky fan.
Oh, how cool
Starsky
were
and Hutch.
you?
Actually, both of them were so cool with that car. And anyway, we're not talking about cars, but
I know. But I had one of those, and Mum knitted it for me, and I don't know what happened to it. If I had it today, I'd wear it today.
And you and I wouldn't be friends.
Oh. Well, given you didn't have a crocheted bikini, I mean,
that's right. There you go.
But cool. What about your Miller's Western shirt?
Oh my goodness. Yep, the boys in their Miller's Western shirt with the press studs.
The little pearl
Little
press
pearly press
studs.
studs. I remember that. And remember there was a time there also in the 70s where the boys would roll up their Winnie Blues in their white T-shirt sleeve. Do you remember that? Guys would walk around with a packet of Winnie Blues in there, rolled up in their sleeve of their T-shirt.
You mixed with a dangerous crowd.
Well, I can remember going to the disco, the under 18s disco, and it was the first time I was sort of allowed to wear clothes that were a little bit risky. And the fashion at the time was pencil skirts. All the girls had pencil skirts and they had big splits up the side. And it was, oh, my mother was not happy at all with me going out. And I wore it to the disco with my white cork platforms and a boob tube. And didn't I just look a picture? I thought I was the hottest thing on the dance floor.
How big was this split? That's what I don't want to know.
Oh,
I don't want to know.
Fairly high, but I was, yeah.
I was probably wearing my Bogarts if I was at that same disco.
Oh, Bogarts.
Bogarts, yes.
They were the pants.
Yes, the pants, and they had like
True.
the sewn-in seam down the front, and I don't know how. I mean,
that's right.
obviously from Humphrey Bogart, I'm sure he would have rolled
Yeah.
over in his grave knowing that something like that was named after him. But I would have had the Bogarts on, having gone to the Maxie's under 18 disco at the local YMCA
Oh
or
my gosh,
whatever
or the
it
blue light
was.
disco or whatever it was. Yeah.
And of course, I probably, before that, the flares on your pants, which probably could have hidden a small dog in them. They were so
exactly. A
wide
refugee
and girlish.
family could have gone in there. Yeah.
Oh,
They were
it was
huge.
Yeah, they were wider than a Boeing 747. Sometimes some of those flares in the early 70s, they really were. But yeah, they worked at the Blue Light Disco. I'm sure they did back in the day.
Oh, they did. And I remember having a pair of jeans that they were not only flared, but they had a big red stripe down the side, each side. And then, but one day I decided I put a pair of shorts. I would have been a wool of 13, maybe 14, and it was school holidays. I was at home, and I put a pair of. Do you remember the lace-up shorts the girls used to wear? They'd lace up at the side, and they were super short. And then I went and borrowed, I say the word lightly, my mother's thigh-high boots that had a super big heel. And my mum is 2 sizes smaller than me, right? So I put these things and I squeezed into them and I did the zipper up and decided I'd walk up to the milk bar. And super shorts and thigh-high boots, and I was 13 or something, and I walked up the milk bar. These tradies went past in a ute and started whistling at me and yelling at me. I was so scared. I ran
13.
home. I ran
13.
home, and I was so scared because it was the first time in my life I'd got attention from like an adult male. And
What were you thinking?
I don't know. Like little girls, you think you're growing up, you wear your mum's clothes and your mum's shoes, and everyone tries on their mum's heels. And I just thought I'd be really cool if I go up the shop in them. And mind you, I couldn't walk for 3 weeks afterwards because they just destroyed my feet. But I remember that distinctly. I got this attention and was very scared.
Yeah, I didn't ever get dressed up in my dad's suit going up to the milk bar thinking that I was a grown-up. Different story situation, I guess.
It's a girl thing. It's a girl thing.
Must be a girl thing.
Yeah.
But the safari suits, go back to the safari suit. And I know yours was pink?
Mine was purple.
Purple.
Because I loved purple.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister had the pink one.
How many teachers at high school would be wearing the safari suit with the long socks and
socks,
brown shoes? Every male teacher seemed to have a safari suit, and weren't they?
But not teachers. I mean, all the used car salesmen had them as well. Do you remember?
They were a fashion statement,
weren't they?
They were a fashion statement, almost as much as tie-dyed T-shirts, which were very big for a while there. Put the rubber band and you dump it in.
You could do it yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember doing it at school. I think I was in year 5, and everyone did a tie-dyed T-shirt, and you put the little rubber bands on them, and then you dunk them in the
dunk them in the thing, and then see how they'd come out. And
you thought you were Jessie Ann's pants. But when you're talking about pants, 70s and probably early 80s, did every man have a pair of stubbies that were just way too tight?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And for some reason, the AFL players' shorts were way too tight, or maybe they still are.
Hello, Warwick Kappa, if you're listening.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking of, Warwick Kappa.
Stubbies have got a lot to answer for. Even the ads, I was having a look at an ad only a couple of days ago, and I thought, there's not a lot left of the imagination there.
No, there's not. Yeah. No, stubbies were Yeah, definitely. And for girls though, I remember the other big fashion item we all had to have was a pair of Corfu jeans.
Corfu jeans. Okay.
Corfu jeans. That was a
Yes.
brand, and we
Yep.
all wanted our Corfu jeans. And you had to have a felt hat, like a big brimmed felt hat. We used to wear to the disco as well. I don't know why that. Maybe it was a Stevie Nicks thing. I don't know.
Wow. I remember the Amco jeans, and Levi sort of went a little bit out of favour, but Corfu jeans. And then there was Peaches jeans.
Oh
Girls had
yeah,
Peaches as
peaches.
well.
Yeah, yeah,
There were a few bands, jeans, and girls used to say they used to, and you'll know this, I don't
yeah.
know if it's a urban myth, to get them on, you'd lay down on the bed with like
Oh yeah, yeah.
a
And you'd get a clothes hanger, a metal clothes hanger, and you'd pull them up. The tighter the better. But you needed a clothes hanger to pull them up because they wouldn't do up otherwise.
is that a real thing? Was that,
Yeah,
that used
that was a real thing. Yeah.
oh gosh.
But wait a second, I got the piece of fashion that is just the best. I had a Sean Cassidy blue satin jacket, and it had his face on the back, and it was blue. And sent away for it. Mum got it for my birthday or something, and I wore it everywhere. Went out to the shops with it, went shopping with it, went everywhere with this. And I've got a photo of it too. I'll have to share it with you.
You really were an influencer, weren't you?
Influencing what though? I don't know.
The blue light disco, which ours was called the Maxis under 18 disco, and that was just a reason to anyway. Yeah, I remember Mum made a velvet sort of after this whole Saturday Night Fever thing came out. I wanted a vest, and she
Yeah.
made this blue velvet. Looking back now, I think, oh gosh, that was a disaster.
Yeah.
Like really, that was just a fashion disaster because you needed the platform shoes to go with it too, and whether it was platform shoes, or there was so many more girls sort of stuff. There was something called clonks, I think.
Clonks.
There
I
were
vaguely remember
they
that.
were a wooden sort
Oh
of
yeah,
shoe that
yeah.
had a bit of a platform, and there was platform
And there
thongs,
was
and there was
and gym
JCs.
boots.
I don't
Remember when
remember
gym boots had
gym
come back
boots.
in? I saw someone wearing them the other day, and I was like, but they're not called gym
Oh
boots
no,
anymore.
no, they'd have a
Or something way more
way
trendy.
more trendy and like probably $300 or $400 to put them on.
Yeah.
So way too many sort of styles of shoes and all that sort of thing before your 80s came into being, and you had your pump Reeboks and all of a sudden, which
Oh
all
gosh,
those sort
yeah,
of things. But a mate of
yeah.
mine actually couldn't afford pump Reeboks I think they were in the 80s. I'm not sure, late 80s.
Yeah.
And so he got a pair of volleys, like Dunlop volleys,
Oh
and
yeah.
cut it.
Never go out of
Yeah,
fashion.
and,
Yep.
and cut a squash ball in half and stuck it to the tongue of the shoe, and would tell people he had a pair of Dunlop volley pumps,
Isn't that
which is
great?
just very inventive of him.
That's amazing. Things we went through to sort of fit in. But the 80s, I think the 80s were amazing from fashion sense, because when you think about the 80s being louder and bigger and brasher, and everything was big and loud, and the fashion reflected that. And I think there was lots of really bright colors. I had this lime green suit I wore to work with the biggest shoulder pads you've ever seen. It was a skirt and a jacket, and it was a satiny kind of thing. But we had big hair, we had loud clothing, and we had loud shoes. And I think I lived in a pair of white patent leather court shoes with a super high heel. I mean, these days I wouldn't be caught dead in white heels because I've got very big feet, and that just makes them look bigger. But yeah, back then the clothes were so loud, but even some of the guys had shoulder pads, right? When some of those 80s bands like
Mm.
Duran Duran and Flock of Seagulls, those guys, they were wearing shoulder pads.
Yeah, you had to walk sideways through doors sometimes. I think
Yes.
the wider the shoulders, it was
Yeah.
more a power dressing thing. They were huge because I remember,
Yeah.
was it Grace Jones and people like those had massive
Yeah.
shoulder pads. And you're
Yeah.
right, whether it was, I think it was White Snake was one of the bands, and all these
Yes,
big
yeah.
power bands of the 80s.
But I think it was women were doing it because I think they were really making headway in the workspace. And there was a few movies that came out at the time, like Working Girl and 9 to 5 and all that kind of stuff. And I think women were making their way in the workspace, and they were showing that they could shoulder a lot, and that, like, don't mess with us because we've got these really big shoulder pads and we've got a really big hair and we're going to make a statement. So I think it kind of went with the time.
Yeah,
That sort
yeah.
of
And the fellas plainly did copy. If you're in a band, if you're in a rock band, and the
Yeah.
bigger the hair, the better.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and the shoulder pads under the leather jackets, all
Yeah.
those sort of things.
Yeah.
It was a thing.
But also in the 80s, don't forget, Princess Di was a huge influence on a lot of people. And when she got married in that puff up, like princess fairy tale kind of dress, everyone wanted to get married in a dress like that. But when you look back at it now, it was so puffy
Mm.
and so loud. But it was typical of the time. You know, everyone wanted Di's hairstyle. Everyone wanted whatever she was wearing. But yeah, it was just we sort of looked to people like that. She was a huge fashion influence, I think, on a lot of people, not just the British.
I thought I saw her with white court shoes, very similar to Kaylee Harris once. I think you may have influenced her, did you?
Yeah, I think she follows me, yeah.
Yeah, I would. Leg warmers. Did you ever used to wear leg warmers?
Leg warmers, I did. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Did that become a thing when the movie Fame came out?
Fame or Flashdance
or whatever it was.
Did they keep your legs warm?
Yeah.
Was that the design?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did keep your legs. Why you needed your thighs, your calves warm, I'll never know.
Yeah.
But also I had a pair of, remember the Bay City Rollers socks? Like tartan socks. But also the socks there was socks that came out at the time where each individual toe had its own little sock.
Oh, toe socks.
And I had those, and I remember thinking they were the coolest thing too.
I've seen those somewhere recently, and it might have been with kids wearing them with their Crocs or something, but
maybe, yeah.
I thought, who came up with that idea? Oh, they're probably sitting in the Bahamas now with a very small umbrella in their drink and thinking,
that's right.
People will buy anything. Because
buy
they were all very colourful, weren't they? The toe socks and everything was neon, like whether it was, whether that's symptomatic of the era or whether that's, reason Miami Vice and Don Johnson, all those colours and big.
Yeah.
That was a staging post for fashion, that particular program, wasn't it?
But I also think there was a bit of the preppies with Don Johnson, because remember the thing there was for guys to wear like a Ralph Lauren polo shirt with a light coloured knitted jumper wrapped around their shoulders and tied at the front. Remember that was a huge thing for guys.
Yep.
And it was like all the Harvard boys seemed to do. You'd watch them on television shows, and it was the rich kids, the preppies and the yuppies.
I've got a mate that still does it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he'll go somewhere. He have his polo on, and he'll have the jumper tied around with the little knot in the front. I'm thinking, you're not fooling anyone. You've probably just been watching,
dude.
Yeah, you've been watching Revenge of the Nerds, and this is like the preppy boys out of that, and it's not fooling anyone, fella. Parachute pants. I remember having a pair of what they used to call parachute pants.
Were they like, like the really big puffy ones that you can still get them in Bali, I think.
Oh, can you? I can't remember. I think I bought them. We went on a family holiday to Hawaii and remember thinking these are crazy and bought a couple of pair anyway. And within 6 months, everyone was wearing them over here.
Yeah.
And I thought, look, I'm just one step ahead. But at the time, I thought, wow, these are. And I think I used to go to the gym back then, and I used to wear them down there. But they caught on. It's like that time lapse that all of a sudden 6 months later, Australia catches on to some of the fashion trends.
Yeah.
And by the time we've done with them, the world's moved on. So I don't know whether that's smart thinking, because we wait to see what works and what doesn't, and we pick and choose.
Yeah.
So, but
we're so far away from all the other countries that it took that long for it to get here.
One of my favourite things in the 80s, and it was the Hypercolour T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the heat activated thing. And so,
the heat activated, that's right.
Yeah, the Hypercolour. So you put your hand on there and all of a sudden you come up and they've got the handprint on there, which was a reason for a lot of inappropriate behaviour when you're 16 or 17, just for the sake of science to see whether that shirt actually works.
Yeah, that's right.
or not. So I remember having one thinking, this is really great. And so, I'm sure there was some inappropriate sort of.
Yeah. And I don't know if I don't think guys were into this. Were guys into batik?
No.
You were talking before about tie-dye. So it was kind of similar. It was a batik pattern that was very, I don't know, Southeast Asian kind of a pattern, batik clothing. Maybe only the girls remember that.
Did you get involved in that whole batik scene?
I think I had when you talked about puffy pants, that made me think of it, because I think the batik pants were quite puffy as well.
Just a variation on the theme, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
think so.
you got your toe. You got your toe sock. Did you ever go down the whole fingerless gloves? I think that was whole the
Oh
Madonna
yeah,
sort of.
yeah. Michael Jackson. Oh no, he had a full glove,
He
didn't
had a
he?
full glove that's a
Yeah,
sequin, but these were the
yeah.
fingerless gloves. I think it was like, was it? I don't know. Was it the movie Desperately Seeking Susan or
Yeah, it was
something?
Madonna. Yeah,
Yeah, and she went in
yeah,
the whole fingerless glove, and all of a sudden, yeah, those 13-year-old girls or prepubescent girls were dressing up like Madonna.
yeah. With cone bras.
And you going down the shops with your mum's boots and
Oh
everything
my
going on,
gosh.
and
Yeah,
it was revisited then because there were all these young girls just dressing up, wanting to be like their idol,
yeah.
and entirely inappropriate.
And like
Um,
Madonna, she used to wear like lots of really big pearls, like big necklaces that would come, down past her waist. And there was like lots of jewelry going on for girls as well. And I think that Madonna did a lot of that. So that was a thing as well. Tons of jewelry.
I think if you're going to emulate someone, you are much safer doing it being probably a Bay City roller and wearing all the tartan gear back in the
Yes.
70s. And we had a couple of girls across the road who were massive Bay City rollers, and they had the whole big tartan pants and socks and
Oh
scarves, and
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot more demure to look like Woody or Les from
yeah.
Bay
Or
City
Derek
rollers
or
than it
whatever
is
his
to.
name was.
Don't pretend that you didn't have
I
some.
wasn't
I mean,
really into them, I gotta say. Like told
really?
you many times, it was Sean Cassidy or nowhere for me. A bit of
Oh,
Leif Garrett, yeah, I liked him. I liked the music of the Bay City Rollers, but I didn't find them that attractive.
and yet, not too many girls wore the two cat outfits that the girls from ABBA wore
No,
on
that's true.
the.
What about
But
those jumpsuits, eh?
oh well, yeah, for the guys and the girls, I think, I
Yeah.
think, I think the boys actually wore a jumpsuit as well. They were outrageous. Some of the things that the ABBA guys actually wore, but just as outrageous, it has come back, the mullet.
Oh, did it ever go? I don't think it's ever gone. I mean, it was huge in the 70s, and there's still people. I think it's come back.
It's an art form now. Like in the
I think
70s,
it
I think it was a style thing. Now it's
Yeah.
just an art form. You look at it and you think, my gosh, even if you watch the NRL and there's some seriously bad haircuts
Yeah.
with footballers these days,
Yeah.
seriously bad.
Yeah.
But the whole mullet thing has just been reinvigorated. And there's certain pockets of Sydney, I guess, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, where these just breed a
The
life.
mullet rules.
Yeah, the mullet
But
rules.
back in the 70s though, like my mother wouldn't have let me have dated someone with a mullet. Like when I was starting to date boys and stuff, and if he had a mullet, it was a no-go zone. But now people with mullets are fated. They're held up to high esteem because they've got some amazing business at the front, party at the back. And
Really?
it's
Really?
yeah. There's like mullet competitions. Who's got the best mullet? And hey, dude, you're rocking that mullet. Mullets are a big thing now. Like they're looked upon favorably.
Have I left my run too late? Is that what?
I think you might have.
I remember getting a haircut, and I had I was influenced while I was at the hairdresser, and someone had suggested I have tracks shaved into the side of my
Oh
hair.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
and of
yeah, yeah.
course, it seemed like a good idea at the time until I
Mm.
got home, and not such a good idea. It was like
And Mum wasn't
not
happy.
happy,
No.
not happy. But anyway, it's the things that we do. The things that we do.
Oh
I,
my
I was
goodness.
talking to
Yeah.
someone the other day, and we were going through some photographs about. I don't know if you remember this midriff tops for men.
Oh no, I'd thankfully forgotten that, but now
Oh,
you've
yeah.
scarred
Look,
me. That's
yeah,
right.
and a lot of them seem to have like the American football jerseys connected with it.
Yeah,
Might
yeah,
have number 77 or something on, and just a midriff top. Now, great if you're probably 15 or 16 and can carry it at the time.
yeah, yeah.
Not so good if you're just following a trend and think,
Yeah, no, they'd only look
yeah,
good on
yeah.
certain people. I think.
Yeah, and not a good thing for like your 40 or 50-year-old guy that's, looking in the mirror but not really seeing what's
No,
there.
that's right.
But but then again, we're stubbies. I know we've talked about stubbies, but there
Yep.
are a lot of things that just were criminal, and I think we've sort of dotted a lot of I's and crossed a lot
I
of
think we
T's.
have. I think we've covered it all, haven't we? Haven't even got to the 90s yet. That was a
No, I
whole
don't.
different. But
Do I
let's
even
not go there.
mention jelly sandals? Did you have jelly sandals?
Oh no, I didn't. No, I
Oh,
didn't have a pair. They look so uncomfortable, and I
yeah.
didn't want a pair. I didn't want any shoes that drew attention to my feet because I've always had big feet.
Right. Okay.
And as a girl growing up, you don't want big anything. So so I got to the 80s and put those white court shoes on. But
right.
yeah.
No,
yeah.
Okay. So I'll take you to your word that in the 80s, a girl didn't want big anything, whether that was hair,
Well, maybe boobs,
shoulder pads, but definitely not white court shoes, right? Or jelly shoes.
No, exactly. Or jelly shoes. Yeah.
All right. Hey, I'm going to go. I'm going to get my volley pumps, see if I can sort of create a pair for myself. And we'll talk next time.
I'll go find my poncho.
I'm looking for the photographs too.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
The views and opinions expressed on the Big 60 are personal and reflect those of the hosts and guests. They do not represent the views or positions of any affiliated organisations or companies. This podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for guidance on any personal matters.
And before we go, let's give credit where credit is due. Kaylee Harris and I came up with all the genius content for this week's episode. Our producer, Nick Abood, well, he keeps the lights on and makes sure we don't accidentally upload a cat video instead of a podcast. So thanks for keeping us on track, Nick. Nick?